Welcome back to the Legal Alternatives Podcast for me, SamPawson. As you'll see, I'm flying solo this week. Nils is off sunning himself for half term, so just me today. Thought I'd share some updates on some tribunal statistics, which is really apparent of what we've been discussing the last few weeks. I've talked a number of cases about the changes in the Employment Rights Act, and I wanted to share some stats that I think are really helpful in this discussion. So these have come out in the last few weeks. So I'll just read you some stats that I thought were really interesting. So as of May this month, we've had the following statistics published. So a backlog of single employment tribunal claims in the employment tribunal has now reached 60,000. Single claim receipts have risen around 60% in the last quarter, from 7,800 per quarter in 22-23 to 12,500 in 25-26. Complex claims, including discrimination and whistleblowing complaints, now make up around 61% of single claims. London and the South East are receiving the greatest pressure in the tribunal, with around half of the claims. And we're seeing some hearings now being listed for 2028 and 2029. Finally, as part of the ACAS early conciliation process, we're now receiving 1,350,000 notifications between April 25 and February 26. So a lot of stats to unpack there, but really important when we're talking about the upcoming changes in the Employment Rights Act. So the last few podcasts I've talked about the changes in limitation periods from 3 months to 6 months. And I've talked about the changes in the unfair dismissal and qualifying service from 2 years to 6 months. What that provides is some really important context as to the issues we're having in the tribunal system, which sadly, in my view, are only going to get worse with these upcoming changes. So wherever we're seeing record levels of claims, a number of the changes we are seeing is only going to make the ability to claim easier. What that generally, therefore, will receive is an increase in claims. I think one of the challenges that presents is an access to justice. So we're already seeing claims being issued for 28 to 29. That will mean that by the time you get to a tribunal hearing, 2 or 3 years may have passed when someone actually gets in front of a tribunal. That creates challenges in terms of witness evidence, recollection. Ultimately, memory fades about the issues that have happened. So big context, I think, to these changes coming up. One of the counter arguments that I have seen, I think is important, is actually where we're talking about the changes to unfair dismissal and obviously the reduction from 2 years to 6 months in terms of the qualifying period. I think that the important stat I'd repeat there is where we're talking about complex claims, including discrimination and whistleblowing, now making up 61% of claims. That's a really interesting figure, and one that there is, I think, a strong argument that actually by reducing the qualifying period to 6 months, that you will actually see some of those claims that are currently being brought as discrimination or whistleblowing claims actually be probably brought as unfair dismissal claims. Seen in practice a lot where you will have employees with less than 2 years of service trying to create discrimination arguments where perhaps if the claim was categorized properly, we're looking more at unfair dismissal claims. So that's something that I think could have a real impact in seeing these complex claims reduce. The issue with the complex claims is that they are the ones that take longer to get through the tribunal system. We have to have preliminary hearings, and the process of creating evidence, burden of proof in those cases do mean these cases go on longer. So there may be a bit of easing of the burden on the tribunal by that important change. However, as I say, purely by the numbers, you are going to see the increased number of claims. So where we're talking about a 60,000 backlog of claims, I think the pure numbers can only go up. The hope is that even though the numbers go up, because of the claims being brought probably more closer to the actual merit of the type of claim, that may at least mean those specific claims get through the system more quickly. So quick update from me this week. Just wanted to kind of alert listeners to some of those statistics that I think are really important, give some context of what we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks when we touch on some further changes in the Employment Tax coming in October this year and a number coming in January of 2027. So that's it for me this week. Myself and Nils will be back next week for the normal podcast. Just goodbye from me.